Imagine the flickering streetlights of a once vibrant American city, where shadows stretch long and the air hangs heavy with the acrid scent of despair. You're walking alone at dusk, heart pounding, when you turn a corner and freeze. There, in the dim glow, a young mother clutches her toddler close, eyes hollow from the grip of addiction, while discarded needles glint like deadly stars on the sidewalk. A siren wails in the distance. Another overdose? Another life slipping away? This isn't a horror movie. It's the chilling reality unfolding right now in some of America's most iconic cities. What if I told you that in these urban nightmares, drugs aren't just a problem? They're a plague devouring families, shattering futures, and leaving bodies in their wake. How many more children will grow up orphaned by fentanyl before we wake up? Buckle up, because tonight, we're diving into the heart of darkness. The top 3 druggiest cities in the USA. These aren't just statistics. They're screams echoing through our streets. And by the end, you might question if your own city is next. Let's pull back the curtain on what makes a city druggiest. We're talking overdose rates that skyrocket, open-air drug markets where dealers operate like street vendors, and a toxic brew of substances that hook the vulnerable and spit out corpses. Based on the latest 2024 data from the CDC and local health departments, the unholy trinity stands out. Baltimore, Philadelphia, and San Francisco. These cities aren't chosen lightly. They top the charts for fatal overdoses per capita, with Baltimore clocking in at a staggering 85.9 deaths per 100,000 residents in 2023, surging into 2024 with provisional numbers pushing even higher. Philadelphia follows close behind at around 70 per 100,000, while San Francisco's fentanyl-fueled frenzy hits 60 per 100,000, but with unsheltered addicts making the streets a living hell. Why these 3? Because here, drugs don't hide in the shadows, they own them. Fentanyl, heroin, cocaine, meth. They're the kings of these concrete jungles, lacing everything from pills to pot, turning casual users into statistics overnight. But it's not just about the numbers, it's about the human wreckage. Children watching parents OD, women trapped in cycles of abuse and addiction, governments throwing billions that vanish into bureaucratic black holes. Ready to face the horror? Let's start with the overdose capital itself, Baltimore. Picture this. The charm city, home to the Inner Harbor's twinkling lights and historic row houses. But peel away the postcard facade, and you're staring into an abyss. In 2024, Baltimore recorded over 1,000 overdose deaths, a body count that would fill a small stadium, making it the deadliest city for drugs in America. That's up from 963 in 2023, a relentless climb that's seen a 20% spike since 2020. Fentanyl reigns supreme here, involved in 90% of those fatalities, often mixed with xylazine, that zombie drug turning users into walking corpses with rotting flesh. Heroin follows at 40%, cocaine at 35%, but it's the synthetics that terrify, cheap, potent, and everywhere. Can you imagine? A single pill bought for pocket change, laced with enough fentanyl to kill an elephant. One wrong choice and poof, gone. But the real terror? The innocents caught in the crossfire. Children in Baltimore are the silent victims, with over 5,000 kids exposed to parental substance abuse in 2024 alone, according to local child welfare reports. Picture a 7-year-old finding mom unresponsive on the kitchen floor, foam at her mouth, while the baby cries in the crib. Neonatal abstinence syndrome. Babies born addicted. Shot up 15% last year. These tiny souls shaking and screaming through withdrawal because mom couldn't kick the habit during pregnancy. And women? They're hit hardest, making up 40% of overdose deaths in 2024. Many victims of domestic violence who turn to drugs to numb the pain, only to find themselves hooked and homeless. 1 in 3 female addicts in Baltimore reports trading sex for drugs, exposing them to HIV, hepatitis, and brutal assaults. How does a city let this happen? Where are the guardians? The government? Oh, they've tried, or so they say. In 2025, Baltimore rolled out its overdose response strategic plan for 2025 to 2027, pumping $50 million into harm reduction, like needle exchanges and naloxone kits. Mayor Brandon Scott touted it as a game changer, but critics scream it's too little, too late, Overdoses still climbed 5% in early 2025. Federal funds from the opioid settlements trickle in, but bureaucracy devours them. Only 30% reaches the streets. Safe injection sites? Proposed, but stalled by politics. Meanwhile, dealers flood West Baltimore with fentanyl from Mexican cartels, and cops bust low-level users while the kingpins laugh. What if your tax dollars are funding a war we're losing? Have we surrendered Baltimore to the dealers? Shift your gaze east to Philadelphia. The city of brotherly love turned into a fentanyl-fueled frenzy. Here, in the shadow of the Liberty Bell, freedom rings hollow for the addicted. Kensington Avenue is ground zero. A post-apocalyptic strip where zombies shuffle, injecting in broad daylight, bodies slumped against graffiti-covered walls. In 2024, Philly logged 1,413 overdose deaths, a 10% jump from 2023, with rates at 70 per 100,000, second only to Baltimore. Fentanyl dominates at 85%, but xylazine, that horse tranquilizer, is in 50% of cases, causing gruesome wounds that won't heal, turning limbs into gangrenous horrors. Cocaine and meth surge too, up 25% since 2022, creating polydrug cocktails that kill faster than ever. Imagine biting into what you think is a Xanax only to black out forever because it's pressed with fentanyl. Scary? It's daily life here. The toll on children is a nightmare you can't unsee. Over 10,000 Philly kids live in households ravaged by addiction in 2024, with child services overwhelmed by 20% more removals due to parental overdoses. Babies born with opioids in their blood rose 12%, these infants wailing through detox, their tiny bodies convulsing. Teens aren't spared, youth drug use spiked 15%, with fentanyl-laced vapes hooking kids as young as 13. And women? They're 35% of victims, many pregnant or postpartum, using to cope with trauma, only to lose everything. Domestic violence links to drugs in 40% of cases, women beaten, then self-medicating into oblivion. Why do we let predators prey on the vulnerable? Government response? A mixed bag of bold moves and bungles. In 2025, Philly's health department released 4 scathing reports on the crisis, admitting failures and pledging $100 million for treatment centers and street cleanups. Mayor Sherelle Parker cracked down on open-air markets, arresting hundreds, but activists howl it's criminalizing poverty. Harm reduction? Needle programs saved 500 lives with naloxone in 2024, but funding cuts loom under federal shifts. Safe consumption sites were vetoed again, leaving addicts to die in alleys. Billions from opioid lawsuits sit unused, tangled in red tape. Is this leadership or lip service? How many more bodies before they act? Now, cross the country to San Francisco, the Golden Gate glowing against a backdrop of golden despair. Tech billionaires sip lattes while addicts shoot up on sidewalks. This is the city where dreams die in a haze of smoke. In 2024, SF tallied 810 overdose deaths, up 5% from 2023, with rates at 60 per 100,000, but the unsheltered crisis makes it feel apocalyptic. Fentanyl is the monster in 80% of cases, often smoked for a quicker, deadlier high. Methamphetamine trails at 50%, cocaine at 30%, creating a stimulant opioid storm that ravages brains and bodies. Tent cities in the Tenderloin reek of urine and desperation, where a single puff can end it all. Ever wonder why tourists step over bodies? Because here, the drug scene is a tourist trap of terror. Children bear the scars deepest. In 2024, 3,000 kids in SF were impacted by family addiction, with foster placements up 18% due to parental ODs. Prenatal exposure to fentanyl jumped 20%. Babies born premature, addicted, facing lifelong disabilities. School kids dodge needles in playgrounds, their innocence stolen by the chaos. Women, 45% of overdoses, many homeless and pregnant, using to survive street violence. Sex trafficking thrives, with drugs as currency, women coerced into addiction. How can a city of innovation ignore this human horror? Government? They're reassessing, but it's a roller coaster. In 2025, Mayor London Breed ended free fentanyl pipe distribution without treatment links, shifting from harm reduction to enforcement. $75 million for sobering centers and raids on dealers, but overdoses persist. Federal aid cut $11 billion nationwide, hitting SF hard. Prop 1 funnels billions statewide, but local bureaucracy slows it. Safe sites? Blocked. Is compassion killing us? Or is inaction the real killer? These cities are canaries in the coal mine. Fentanyl from China via Mexico flooding in, meth labs humming, cocaine resurgence. Nationally, 107,000 OD deaths in 2023, up to 110,000 in 2024. Children, 1 million affected, women. Disproportionate rise in ODs. Governments spend $100 billion yearly, yet the beast grows. What if it's in your backyard next? Demand change before the shadows swallow us all.